in entropy or information, something falls into the black hole. Before, it was thought that nothing ever leaves the black hole, but of course, after Hawking radiation was discovered, it turned out that black holes do shrink and something does come out of them.
Yeah.
How did this result in, or how was this part of the information paradox? And then where did Gerard at Hooft's and Susskind's idea of holography come out of this?
Right. So what Hawking showed at first is that black holes radiate in a way that would look like thermal radiation. Thermal radiation is what you get when you take an object and you put it otherwise in a vacuum, so you have a nice clean situation, and you just heat it up to a certain temperature, and you ask, what spectrum of wavelengths does it emit, and that spectrum will follow a particular law. What Hawking first showed is that the spectrum looked very similar looked that way for black holes. 2 years later, in 1976, he published a paper which went into more detail as to the actual quantum state, the exact quantum state of the radiation that's emitted by the black holes, and showed that it is exactly what is called a thermal state. What's important about that result is that when we say a thermal state, what we really mean by that is we don't know which state it is. It's what's called a mixture of many different quantum states, each with a certain probability. And this is something that, you can easily get, for example, if you have a quantum system and you break it up into two pieces, and I give you one and I take the other, and then even though the whole quantum system might be in what is called a pure state, a very definite quantum state, each of us would not be able to ascribe a definite state to our piece of the system. In fact, it might be completely indefinite. It could be any out of a gazillion different possibilities. It's only when you put it back together that you can recover the pure state. Now, what's not supposed to happen if I put a quantum system, a glass of water, into an isolated environment, perfectly isolated, and I just let it sit there, it might evolve. Maybe the glass will even break and the water will spill on the floor or something. But so long as I have it in a box that's completely well isolated, the final quantum state will be a definite one, a pure state, if the initial one was a pure state. And there's some law that tells you the evolution from one to the other. But the important thing is that you can always predict or retrodict. You can go back and forth, just like with classical physics with a cannonball. If you know how fast it's moving now, you can calculate how fast it was moving and where it was at earlier times and where it will be at later times. It's completely deterministic. And this is actually a fairly fundamental principle in quantum mechanics, that if you don't interfere and you've got a well-isolated system, then you should not be able to lose quantum information. You should not be able to go from a definite state to not having a definite state. What Hawking showed is that if you make a black hole, say by collapsing a star in a pure quantum state, very difficult, by the way, to arrange this in practice, but we don't worry about the practicalities here. It's just a question of, an in-principle issue with the laws of physics. So you make such a black hole, you know what the quantum state was in the beginning. It was that of a star. Now, you don't know too much about how to describe black holes because we don't have a quantum theory of gravity. Doesn't matter. The black hole is going to evaporate. It's going to return all of its energy to the universe. Eventually, it'll be gone, and all you'll have is a cloud of radiation. That's, precisely the kind of situation like I had this glass of water, and a day later I come back into the well-isolated room, and it's a puddle on the floor. I don't really care what happened in between. One thing I'm going to insist on is that it better be a pure state in the end if it was a pure state in the beginning. That's sort of a basic principle. And what Hawking found is that this Hawking radiation cloud that we're left with at the end is in a mixed state, even if we started in a pure state. That it is, and in fact, it's sort of in the same mixed state no matter how you made the black hole, for so long as the black hole has the same mass to start with. It's going to produce exactly the same mess of Hawking radiation no matter what you made it from. And so this would have fundamentally altered the reversibility and deterministic nature of the laws of quantum mechanics. And it seemed like so how people responded to this depended very much on which community of physicists they were from, strangely. So if you were primarily trained in general relativity, in Einstein's theory of gravity, the theory that tells you how black holes work and what they look like, and so on, you were perhaps likely to just shrug your shoulders at this and say, well, duh. The information went into the black hole. Obviously, it's not going to be also outside, right? I mean, what's your problem? Why are you making a fuss about this? If you were a particle physicist who studied, collisions of particles at big accelerators and people discovering new particles all the time this way and so on, and you've been mostly thinking about quantum mechanics all your life, then you would immediately protest this conclusion and say this is completely crazy because even, once you throw out this basic principle of what's called unitarity, that information is not lost, if you throw this out when you consider processes where black holes form and evaporate, you're not going to be able to confine it to those settings. Principles are principles. They either hold or they don't. Once the dam breaks, forget it. And it's very hard to understand why the principle would hold to such a good approximation if it's fundamentally just not true. Yeah, so it was hard, I think, initially for these communities to sort of even understand where each other, were coming from. Stephen himself was certainly in the GR camp, and he was the one who first proposed that information is lost. And people like John Preskill, Lenny, of course, and at Hooft were, found this hard to believe. And I think my own favorite, like if I imagine I had lived I've been part of physics in the 70s and early 80s when these opinions were sort of formed. I'm a little bit surprised that the following argument was never made. Bekenstein had already argued that black holes are like things. They have an entropy. It would be extraordinarily strange if they had an entropy, but they did not store information. The thing that makes you believe that information is lost inside a black hole is the viewpoint where a black hole does not have a consistent thermodynamic description from the outside. It's the viewpoint where, okay, the black hole the information went inside and there's simply no imprint of it. But if I have a box and I throw information in it and the entropy of the box keeps going up, then I have every reason to believe that at a detailed level, if I knew the quantum state of the box, there would be my information. It would not be lost. There was no reason for black holes to obey this second law and to have an entropy if they weren't secretly going to store the information and return it to the exterior. But anyway, that's not the argument that was made. So that's the paradox. The paradox is that Hawking's calculation was very robust. He did not make assumptions that we could easily question. Essentially, the only important assumption that he made in his calculation is that general relativity, Einstein's theory of gravity, is not totally wrong at the horizon of a large black hole. No, large is good here. Large means that space and time are not curved very strongly at the horizon of the black hole. It means that you should be able to trust the theory. We think we can't trust it when they're curved on very short distance scales. Then maybe we need, a quantum theory of gravity. But general relativity should not be totally wrong in settings like this, where it clearly works, where, you know, the curvature of space and time is weak, that's all that Hawking was assuming. And people try to have it sort of both ways for a while. Not question this assumption, but at the same time wanting the information to come out. That was the idea of black hole complementarity that was sort of formalized in the early 90s, again by people like Susskind, Preskill at Hooft, and others, that you get to have your cake and eat it. You know, for an infalling observer, there's nothing special at the horizon of a black hole. Einstein's theory is totally valid. And yet somehow the information comes out. Another very important development came in 2012 through a paper by Ahmed Almeri and his collaborators, now known as the firewall paper. That paper was essentially just saying, well, if you want the information to come back out, you can sort of run that outcome backwards and show that the horizon of a black hole cannot be even remotely, even approximately given by the description that general relativity gives it. There has to be some kind of structure there. It cannot just look like any old piece of empty space, like which is what Einstein's theory says. So it sort of sharpened the conflict. It said you can't have your cake and eat it. You have to choose. You either have to say that information is lost, or you have to say that Einstein's theory is completely wrong in a place where you had every right to expect that it should be an extremely good approximation. And so that was, to me, actually a big shock at the time. So at that point, I'd been in physics a while, and I was certainly sort of vaguely convinced that complementarity made sense. You know, details remained to be worked out, but that paper showed that, you know, we had not come close to resolving this issue, and I feel like we still have not resolved this issue. I think what's very likely true is that the information comes out. There's a huge amount of evidence for that. So if you define resolving the black hole information paradox as just answering that question, yes, no, does the information come out? I'd say we can be very confident that has been answered. It comes out. But if you define the black hole information paradox as I think you should, which is as the question of, well, how do you reconcile the information coming out with the description of a black hole according to general relativity? How do you recover general relativity as an appropriately accurate approximation at the horizon of a large black hole? I think that is something we have not resolved. And it remains, to me, a really interesting question.